My tomatoes are coming along nicely. They were planted later than usual this year, so they might be much smaller than yours depending on where you are. I still have a few cherries that I seeded and that are in cups, deciding whether or not I'm going to plant them or just skip it this year. I already have quite a few. They look really bad because they've been in these cups for, I think we're going on 3 months now. Sorry guys. But it got me thinking about things that can stress tomatoes out and make them look like this, even when they're in the ground. You can see they're turning kind of purple, but you can really see that their leaves are curling up. Have you ever walked out to your tomato garden kind of excited to see the progress of your tomato plants? And when you get close, something looks off. And when you lean in closer, those leaves don't look nice and flat like they did a few days ago. Now they're all curled up like little tacos. Makes your heart sink a little bit. They might be like little tacos, they might be twisted or curled around. You think to yourself, is this normal? Is something wrong? Is this the beginning of the end for my tomatoes this year? I've been there, probably more times than I can count. The thing about tomato leaf curl is it can be bad, but most of the time it's pretty normal and it doesn't hurt your plants at all. It's tricky though because it exhibits a little bit different, but not that different. So I'm going to take you through in this video the different types of leaf curl and what they mean. Tomato leaf curl is super common and most of the time it's no big deal, but sometimes it can be deadly. So today we're going to go through what causes tomato leaf curl, what to look out for, and how to fix it. Prevention tips, real fixes, and what's worth worrying about. One of the most common and least harmful causes of tomato leaf curl is environmental stress. Now we're talking about heat waves, dry wind, too much sun, drought conditions, too much water. You can see where it gets confusing. But basically in this situation, it's your tomato plant going into survival mode. It curls its leaves to protect itself from losing too much moisture in the hot sun. Much like the way we squint our eyes when we're in a sunny location. I like to call this a self-care response. It's just your tomato doing what it needs to do to protect itself from the environment that it's in at the moment. And just like squinting at the sun is not harmful to us, tomato leaf curl in this instance is not harmful to your tomatoes. So if the new growth looks green and healthy, doesn't have any other issues that you can see, it's probably just that. Let it be, it'll take care of itself, it'll sort itself out when the environment changes, and you're good to go on that one. Now there are a few things you can do to keep this from happening or to fix it when it's happening. If you just don't like the way it looks, it makes you anxious. The first thing you do is make sure it's got a nice thick layer of mulch that regulates the soil temperature and the soil moisture, and that's gonna go a long way to helping your plant out. Shallow, inconsistent watering stresses your plants more than you can even possibly think about. They like consistent moisture at their roots and they don't want to dry out. So if you can water or set your watering system to water early in the morning, it sets them up for success for the rest of the day, especially with the mulch. If you're gardening in zones with 90+ degrees Fahrenheit afternoons or all day, a little temporary shade can help reduce stress. A shade cloth that shades them for that portion of the day, maybe a 35-40% shade cloth, really will help, and you'll see a lot less leaf curling. Now I learned this by trial and error. I grew up and lived up until 4 years ago, semi near the beach, and we didn't ever have a 90+ degree day. I mean, it was very, very rare. A hot summer day was like 83. But when I moved here, a little more inland, things changed. And it took me a while to kind of get used to it. But now I know mulch and shade cloth pretty much knocks out, in all but the worst heat, knocks out that tomato leaf curl. All right, the second thing that might cause leaf curl, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is watering issues. Too much water can cause leaf curl. Too little water, inconsistent water can also cause leaf curl. But you probably know by looking at the soil, or at least by sticking your finger in a couple of inches, which of those you're dealing with. What you don't want is your tomatoes just sitting in soggy soil. They hate that. They'll do more than leaf curl. After a while, they're just going to give up. They also don't like to be dried out between waterings. So if you water heavily and then don't water again for like a week or so and the ground just completely dries out, they're going to curl up their leaves in protest. They're probably going to do more than that though. You might start getting blossom end rot, and that is mainly from inconsistent watering. So again, use your finger, stick it 2 inches into the soil. If you feel wetness, don't water. If it doesn't feel wet, water. It's that simple. You can also, if you have nice nails, I've heard that in comments, just get a moisture meter and stick it in there and it'll let you know whether or not you need to water. Now, if your tomatoes are constantly soggy, you might have a drainage issue. So if you've got like heavy clay soil, mix in some perlite, some compost to lighten it up a little bit and improve that drainage. Or if it's super heavy clay and just doesn't drain, you might have to move to containers or raised beds. And create a schedule. If you're not on a timer where you have drip that irrigates everything, make a schedule so you know when to water. I prefer every other day, especially in the heat of summer. And you want to water deeply. You want the roots to follow that water as deep into the soil as you can, because there's a lot more water down there more consistently than in the top few inches of your soil. I would have to say watering is probably one of the biggest issues that people come to me with. They don't know how much to water, how long to water, depending on what type of watering method they're using. It's a big issue. So I have to tell you about something that is free, that we've had, but we're actually bringing it out today as a completely rebranded site, and coming this winter, an app. And I've talked about it before. We talked about it as the planting calculator, but we have so far outgrown that and what it is now that we are completely renaming it, rebranding everything. It's now gardenguide.com. And you can go on there and learn exactly when to plant things. You can do troubleshooting and figure out what's going on with your plants, how to grow them, special tips and tricks associated with them, companion planting. But one of the biggest things I'm excited about is the watering guide. You can go into each specific crop, put in how you water. So if you're watering with a hose or with drip or a soaker hose or a shower nozzle on a hose, which for tomatoes, you shouldn't be doing that. But tell us how big your bed is, what kind of watering you're doing. It already knows what the plant you're talking about is, and that's going to tell you how many minutes per week that plant needs of water in that specific size bed. I've never seen anything like this before, so we wanted to bring it to you because, again, it's one of the most common questions we get asked. It's gardenguide.com. It's free. I'll leave a link down below. Okay, the third issue that brings about tomato leaf curl is herbicide exposure. Now, this doesn't mean that you literally went and sprayed your tomato plants with a herbicide. Obviously, at that point, they'd probably just keel over and die. But if you have neighbors or you live near farmland where some of that herbicide drifts over from the wind and gets on your plants, it causes tomato leaf curl. Even worse, because sometimes you just can't help that and where you live. But even worse is when you bring compost into your garden and you don't exactly know the source it came from. It could have been made by animals, animal manure. And if those animals ate grass with a herbicide called Grazon on it, that can actually go through their whole body, out into their manure, and still be existing in your beds. And there's up to a 3-year period on that where it can still cause problems in your vegetable beds. So if possible, know where your compost is coming from. But the leaf curl with this type of issue is different than the taco-shaped leaf curl that we talked about in the prior two. What you want to watch out for is tight curling of the leaves, especially on the lower leaves, thin, strappy-like ferny foliage that just doesn't look like a tomato leaf anymore, and stunted growth, even if you're watering and feeding them well. So what do you do in this situation? Well, put up physical barriers if you can, some kind of hedge, or just literally a barrier like a wall. You can put up floating row covers over your tomatoes to keep the herbicide drift off of the leaves. If it's been affected, this is probably more stuff for next year to prepare, because depending on how bad that herbicide drift was, your plants might not recover this year. If you suspect that it's in your compost, switch the compost that you use. What you can do is plant some bean seeds and corn seeds in that compost. If the beans come up and look twisted and deformed, but the corn looks fine, definitely could be a grazon issue because corn is a grass. Grazon does not bother grass. It actually takes care of broadleaf plants like a bean or most other weeds. I haven't unfortunately seen a lot of remedies that are proven to work. Grazon exposure is fairly recent. I know there's a lot of studying going on. But right now it's either you wait that time out and each year it does diminish a little bit for about 3 years and then you should be fine. I know that's not the news you want to hear. Or you could grow in raised beds over that for the next 3 years. If it's in your raised beds, you could empty all the compost out and put new. It's not a fun situation for sure. What you don't want to do if you're composting your own stuff is don't take those affected plants and put them in your compost. They need to go in the trash where they're completely taken off site. I've seen quite a few viewers who have sent me pictures, or I've seen on our Facebook group or on our community, who have put pictures up and they're asking, what is this problem with my tomatoes? And I've had to break the news that it's probably grazon. An equally bad, if not worse situation is tomato yellow leaf curl virus. And this virus is spread from plant to plant by whiteflies. And it can wipe out a whole plant or a whole garden if not taken care of. So the signs, again, are a little bit different than the previous ones. These are going to be twisted leaves that are kind of curling upward. You'll see yellowing, especially at the leaf edges. You'll see kind of stunted growth. It won't be fruiting, and there'll be the telltale whiteflies underneath the leaf. So what do you do? Well, remove that plant immediately. Pull it out of the ground, take it off site again, put it in the trash. Don't leave it around your house. Definitely don't leave it sitting there by your tomato bed. There's no cure for a plant once it has this virus, and you don't want it to spread, so get it out of there. You want to control whitefly in your garden early, and that could mean yellow sticky traps, using neem oil. If you want to use some companion planting strategies for tomatoes, definitely go to ourgardenguide.com. I'm not going to get into that here. I've done a lot of videos on it, but there are definitely companion planting strategies for tomatoes. Maybe I'll leave a link at the end of this video. You can look for tomato yellow leaf curl virus resistant varieties of tomatoes and plant those seeds next year. I'll leave some names of varieties that I know to be resistant to this virus down in the video description. The next cause of tomato leaf curl is nutrient imbalances. Now, this is mainly talking about an excess of nitrogen. Nitrogen is the first number on the 3 numbers on a bag or box of fertilizer. So here's what happens. Too much nitrogen equals fast leafy growth, which might sound good on the outset. That's how they sell Miracle-Gro. Fast leafy growth equals weak cells that are more prone to drooping, twisting, curling. It could also be too little magnesium or calcium, but that's very, very rare. So if you're having this issue, it's most likely the nitrogen. But it's pretty easy to prevent this. Stick with an organic fertilizer. First of all, organic fertilizers by their makeup cannot be a ridiculous amount of any of the nutrients. So stick with a balanced organic fertilizer and you shouldn't have these issues. You can add compost for some slow release nutrients for your plants. Now, if you don't suspect any of these, and if you also have blossom end rot, then it could be a magnesium calcium issue, which most likely can be handled by improving your watering methods like we talked about earlier. If that's not the case, adding some gypsum and Epsom salt very sparingly. Just do that once, see if that helps the problem. But again, it's most likely not that. And test your soil. If all else fails, it's the best $15 you can spend on your garden. All right, so what do you do when you see leaf curling? Here's your checklist. Check for pests under the leaves, review your watering habits, look at the weather. Has it been hot, dry, windy? Consider any herbicide exposure and observe if the plant is still growing and flowering. If everything looks good, it's typically just a self-care response. Keep taking care of the plant, trim off any of the worst affected leaves. Most likely your plant's going to bounce back beautifully. I always say growing tomatoes will teach you patience like nothing else. They'll surprise you, frustrate you, reward you, and humble you, all in the same week. If this has helped you, give the video a thumbs up. Put in the comments if you've had any of these issues and how you dealt with them, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be others who are looking for those answers down below. And like I mentioned earlier, I'll put a link right here to a video on the best science-based companion planting strategies for tomatoes. I'll see you guys next time.